Whoa, it's the Illusion reporting from somewhere on spaceship Earth. Rawr. So, I had this thought a minute ago, and there's three kind of emails I get, generally speaking. There's questions about sobriety in one way or another. There's questions about spirituality and what God may or may not be. And there's questions about art. And I realized that all three of those are basically all right, you know how when you have the circles, I forget what it's called, and then they intersect and it makes like a new color? All three of those intersect to be like the bigger thing. And it's called source energy, right? So I think most people think sobriety has something to do with drugs and alcohol. It really doesn't. It has to do with perception. And I would say that most people suffer from emotional lack of sobriety, i.e., if you're walking around in a bad mood all day, you're emotionally not sober. That is some toxic energy. I've been there, done that, dude. So, you know, when we talk about this thing, right, like what is sobriety, it's much deeper than putting down the bottle or not smoking weed or whatever it is. It's this deeper underlying thing, which is how we interact with the energy field around us and the energy that we're broadcasting out into the world, right? So in order for me to maintain any sort of like sobriety, whether it be from drugs and alcohol, or it be emotional sobriety, or it just being me able not to buy surfboards I don't need, or whatever it may be, I have to have that interface with the God of my understanding, which is not religion. I've been very clear on that, which is just a spiritual connectivity. As the more you move through spirituality, the more it becomes defined to an understanding you relate to. I have my personal understanding with Jesus Christ, and that's not me saying you got to do it my way or not. It's got nothing to do with it. That's just my experience. And so in order for me to have sobriety, I have to have this spiritual understanding, this connectivity to God, right? And then that brings me about to art, right? Because art, for me, is my expression of being connected to source energy, to God, and being sober at the same time, right? I've done art loaded, and it's just loaded art. But when I'm in a true place of spirituality and connectivity, boom, I'm making art that's coming not from me, it's coming through me. Do you get what I'm saying? And I was answering this kid's question about, like, you know, how to be better art. The one thing I personally understand about my artistic endeavors is the process is for me. The process of creating thing, of making this shirt, of doing my art pieces, of making these videos, that's for me to realize my spirituality and to maintain my sobriety. But the end product of my art is whoever else it is. It's not my business what anybody does with said art. So I learned a long time ago in the process, I had this other epiphany, which was that when I was making art, I would put it on Instagram, and if people wanted to buy it, they could. And the art that I personally did not like, that I thought was a disaster, would within 20 minutes, someone would be like, I want that. That's the piece of art I want. And I used to kind of scratch my head about it, because, you know, there's a part of me that's like, wants to feed myself doing what I enjoy versus what I don't enjoy. And so I would scratch my head, and then it dawned on me that the art's not mine. When I make a piece of art, I finish it because I'm in my meditative space. I'm in contact with source. I'm doing my art. I'm maintaining my sobriety. I finish my art. I put it in a bag under the couch with all the other art. I don't hang it on my wall. I don't do any, except for this one piece. That's my piece of art that I like, of mine. I like all my art on like a level because I made it, but like I'm not attached to it. And I realized that that's because I am just a vessel creating somebody else's props for their dream, right? Like my buddy Chris Miller made this. I've carried this around with me since 1998. That's part of my my props, the stuff that's in my house my stuff. But when Chris made that, he didn't know that it would be part of my thing.
That's my art.
It's your art now too. You're right, Al. So I guess what I'm getting at is like I had to detach from the part where my art ends and the rest of it begins. That's none of my business. So like I would suggest that anybody making, whether it's music or art or literature, whatever it is, dude, just make it and put it out there and let whoever wants it want it. And that's the thing that where again it comes back to the spirituality, right? Because if your art is based upon this connection to spirituality, it means it's part of this consciousness and all you're doing is creating, right? So the one thing that I learned in sobriety was how to connect to God, and then the realization of what the universe wants is creation, right? Like the universe wants us to make stuff, whether it's another human being, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a piece of art, whether it's music, one of the most valuable things I think people can make. It wants us making stuff. And what, right, if I was talking about what emotional sobriety is, it's the bedevilments, the ego that says that you're not worthy, your art's garbage, that this doesn't mean anything, blah, 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 which will prevent you from creating art because you're so worried about what everyone else is going to say, when if you check out the 4 agreements, someone's opinion of you or your end product's none of your business. So if someone doesn't like your art, who cares? It's not your business because you finished your art, but you were making your art because you're in contact with God, and because you're sober, who cares? So it's this thing where these 3 components of life are interdependent. And one without the other, from my perspective, again, it's a 3-legged stool that falls over, right? I need to be connected to source, to God, to maintain sobriety. I need both of those to make art. I need art and connection to God to facilitate sobriety, because art is my meditative process to remove myself from the lack of sobriety, right? If I'm doing art, I can't be in a bad mood. I can start in a bad mood, but it's a process to get out of a bad mood. I can't be getting loaded. I could be getting loaded, but then I'm not in contact with source. And then sobriety can't exist without this connection to God, source, spiritual understanding, whatever it is for you. And the way you can manifest your understanding of sobriety is to make art and send it out into the universe and get over yourself. That's it. I can see it a lot clearer in my mind, but I realized that they're all interconnected. And that's maybe why this thing's going on here, is because, you know, people have talked to me, and I'm getting long-winded as I always do, said that this project I'm doing on YouTube now 7 years later is a giant art piece. And I've come to realize that it is. It's this trippy, what do they call it when you're, art. What's the art when it interacts with the community, man? I forget what that's called, man. Performance art. This is some sort of trippy performance art, man, that just keeps going, dude. And the colors keep changing and the thing's psychedelic. Because all of a sudden I put the word out to people to send me t-shirt ideas. Dude, they've been coming. Send your t-shirt ideas. Dude, we're going to have a line of the Radical High Frequency Tribe t-shirts created by High Frequency Tribe members. That is like taking art to the fourth dimension, right? Because it's next level, dude. So anyway, that's the illusion, and I'm signing off.